The image is still burned in my mind. Lap 23, turn 3 at Zandvoort. Hamilton's Ferrari snaps and slides into the barrier. No contact with another car, no obvious mechanical failure, just a sudden loss of control. And here's the part that gets people talking. Was it really just driver error, or was something deeper going on? Even Hamilton himself didn't point fingers. He simply said, "As I went up the bank, the rear snapped out, I couldn't recover." That honesty set the stage. Earlier he'd mentioned the car felt twitchy but strong, that he was catching George, that he actually had the pace of a few cars ahead. So why does a driver in rhythm, with momentum building, suddenly end up in the wall? The truth is, the crash didn't begin with the impact. It began with silence from the pit wall. Now here's where you and I need to dig in. At that very moment, the rain had already started to sprinkle. Turn 3, with its steep banking, instantly becomes a trap once grip drops. Other drivers, Piastri, Norris, Verstappen, were already adjusting. Even Charles Leclerc had pitted. But Hamilton? No warning, no strategy switch, no early pit call. Just quiet radio waves. And that's what makes this moment sting. He's one of the most experienced drivers in changing conditions. If anyone deserved clear updates, it was him. Yet of all the cars on track, he was the one caught out. Think about that. When a corner becomes a danger zone, someone inside every team knows. The real question is, who stayed quiet and why? So let me ask you straight. Do you think this was on Hamilton, or did the silence from Ferrari set him up to fail? Drop your vote in the comments. Driver, team, or weather? And hey, if you like this kind of raw breakdown, subscribe to Fast News F1 and hit the notification bell. Your subscription is really important to us, and it helps us reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers. Because trust me, this story is just beginning. If you really want to understand why Hamilton's crash matters, you have to look at the timeline Ferrari won't show you on TV. Let's rewind just 2 laps earlier, because those 60 seconds tell the whole story. By lap 21, rain had already been spotted on visors. Drivers like Piastri were hinting about grip loss. Warnings were circulating, and teams were updating strategies. The paddock knew conditions were shifting. But Ferrari? Their reaction split down 2 very different paths. Lap 22, Charles Leclerc boxes. Ferrari reacts quickly, brings him in, and gets him back out on track. That call kept him safe for the moment. But at the very same time, Hamilton was still on slicks, still chasing George Russell, and still in push mode. No call, no box, no message to cool the tires, not even a simple heads up about the changing track. He stayed committed, blind to the fact that turn 3 was about to transform into a trap. Then, lap 23 arrives. Hamilton enters the banked corner, the rain has intensified, grip falls away, and the rear snaps. From the outside, it looks like an isolated mistake. But when you line up the sequence, Leclerc protected, Hamilton left exposed, it becomes more than bad luck. It starts to look like indecision, hesitation, maybe even a choice about which driver Ferrari truly prioritized. Think about how strange this really is. Ferrari had data from Leclerc's stop. They knew conditions were shifting. They saw other teams warn their drivers. Yet Hamilton, the most experienced racer in changeable weather, didn't get the same support. That silence wasn't just costly, it ended his race and potentially cost Ferrari valuable points. So, if you were sitting on Ferrari's pit wall in that moment, would you have pulled Hamilton in on lap 22, just like Leclerc? Or would you have let him push for track position? I want you to drop your vote in the comments, box him, or keep him out. And while you're there, hit like if you think Ferrari's strategy team owes fans and Hamilton some answers. Don't forget to subscribe to Fast News F1 and enable notifications. Your support helps us reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers, so we can keep digging into the calls teams don't want you to notice. because when you really line up the facts, the crash looks less like a spin and more like a system failure. Here's where things get even harder to ignore. If Hamilton's crash was just about grip, then every driver would have been sliding off at turn 3. But when you look at the telemetry and the rival team's radio messages, the difference becomes crystal clear. Ferrari left Hamilton in the dark, while others were actively protecting their drivers. Take McLaren. Oscar Piastri's data shows exactly how his team reacted to the rain. On lap 22, his lift points increased, brake pressure smoothed out, and his engineer was on the radio warning him about damp patches near the apex. Norris got similar guidance. He was told about the risk zone and reminded to stay cautious through Sector 2. They didn't pit immediately, but they adjusted their approach so both cars could survive the change. Now compare that to Verstappen at Red Bull. He didn't just get silence. His engineer was prepping him, telling him to preserve tires, to back off attack mode, and to expect a box window soon if the drizzle continued. Max knew what was coming, so he changed his rhythm. That's what champions need: foresight. Hamilton, meanwhile, was still on worn mediums, chasing Russell aggressively, completely unaware that grip was fading away under him. No request to cool the tires, no adjustment to brake balance, not even a be careful at turn 3. And here's the kicker. Ferrari had already seen the data from Leclerc's stop. They knew what the track was doing, yet they refused to pass that information on to Hamilton in time. This wasn't about slicks versus inters. It was about awareness. Other teams treated the rain as a strategic risk. Ferrari treated it as an afterthought, and Hamilton paid the price. That's why so many people are calling it neglect, not driver error. So, let me throw it to you. Which team handled the changing conditions best? Was it McLaren with their cautious approach, Red Bull with their foresight, or did Ferrari still make the right gamble? Drop your choice in the comments and tell me why. And while you're here, make sure you're subscribed with the notification bell on. We're pushing for 1,000 subscribers, and your support helps us bring you the breakdowns teams won't share themselves. Because if the rivals can adapt, but Ferrari can't, then maybe Hamilton's crash wasn't a mistake. It was inevitable. What happened on track was bad enough, but what happened off track may be even worse. After the crash, the spotlight turned to Ferrari's garage, and that's where the cracks really showed. Reports from inside say the decision-making chain between Hamilton's side of the garage, strategy, and engineering is fractured. And the silence surrounding Hamilton wasn't just in the cockpit, it followed him all the way back to the paddock. Think about this. After his own incident, Charles Leclerc had immediate support. Engineers rallied, mechanics checked in, and protective statements were made on his behalf. He wasn't left to face the music alone. But Hamilton? When he returned to the garage, insiders say the atmosphere was ice cold. Mechanics kept their heads down, engineers looked away, and the man who should have been right there by his side, Riccardo Adami, never even approached him. No quiet word, no pat on the shoulder, not even a basic debrief. Hamilton reportedly stood there, helmet still on, waiting for communication that never came. That silence wasn't just awkward, it was a message. When one driver gets backed immediately and the other gets nothing, it feels less like strategy and more like favoritism. And it feeds the growing belief that Ferrari hasn't figured out how to balance two stars in the same team. When pressure builds, one gets protection, the other gets neglect. And here's the dangerous part. That dynamic doesn't just cost results, it erodes trust. Every driver knows mistakes happen, conditions change, races are unpredictable. But when your own garage looks the other way, when the people you rely on most leave you standing alone, that cuts deeper than any crash ever could. So I want to hear from you. Have you ever been left out by your own team or group, whether in sports, school, or work? Share your story in the comments, because that feeling of isolation is exactly what Hamilton went through in that garage. And if you think Ferrari owes him more respect, hit like and subscribe to Fast News F1. Every new subscriber pushes us closer to our goal of 1,000, and it makes sure stories like this one don't just disappear. Because the truth is, what broke at Zandvoort wasn't just a rear tire's grip. It was the bond between driver and team, and maybe the future of this partnership. So here's where everything comes together. Hamilton's crash at Zandvoort wasn't just another racing incident. It was a turning point. Not because he lost control, but because the system around him failed at the exact moment he needed it most. Ferrari had the data, they had the warnings, and they had every reason to act, but they didn't. And when you replay the entire sequence, you see it wasn't just bad luck, it was indecision, misalignment, and silence. Hamilton handled the aftermath the way he always does, calm in front of the cameras, professional in his words. He said, "We made real progress this weekend and talked about having the pace of the cars ahead. But listen carefully. That wasn't resignation, that was restraint." Behind the scenes, reports say he was livid, not because he spun, but because he was the last to know the track had turned. That frustration tells you this relationship is reaching a breaking point. And here's the big question that Ferrari can't run from anymore. Who do they build around? Because trying to treat both Hamilton and Leclerc as equals is breaking the structure apart. Every delayed call, every missed message, every unspoken preference makes the cracks wider. If they don't choose a clear leader soon, they risk losing both the season and the future they promised when Hamilton signed. With Monza on the horizon, the stakes couldn't be higher. This isn't just about pace anymore, it's about trust, priorities, and respect. Ferrari either commits to protecting its champion, or it risks collapsing under its own politics. For Hamilton, the message has been sent loud and clear. You can't win when your team leaves you in silence. So now I want your take. Should Ferrari finally make Hamilton the priority or keep splitting focus between both drivers? Drop your answer in the comments, and don't leave without subscribing to Fast News F1 and hitting the notification bell. Your subscription is what keeps us going, and it helps us hit our goal of 1,000 subscribers. That way, you'll never miss the breakdowns that reveal what's really happening inside Formula One. Because this story isn't over. In fact, it's only just beginning.